let's bring in Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy. Sir, thanks for taking time with us. Understand you just came out of the weekly policy lunch, and we are led to believe from our reporters on the ground there that the senator did address his health. Are you able to tell us or paraphrase for us what he said?
Sure. First, all the press here on Capitol Hill has wanted to talk about this week is Senator McConnell. They're wetting their collective pants with delight at being able to talk about it because it keeps them from having to talk about President Biden. I mean, the polls clearly show, whether you agree or disagree, that about 60% of the American people think that President Biden can't finish a sentence without taking a nap. But the press up here doesn't want to talk about that. Now, with respect to Senator McConnell, all Republican senators just had lunch. Senator McConnell talked about his health history. He explained he's no stranger to health problems, starting with polio as a child. He's had two of these, he said, and only two of these brain freeze moments. He said he's been checked out by every specialist in Washington and all over hell and half of Georgia, and they've all given him a clean bill of health, and that he feels fine, and I take him at his word. Regardless of what we all think, the truth is, and it's what I've tried to explain to my friends in the press, the only person in the Milky Way who can make Mitch McConnell step down is Mitch McConnell. And I know him pretty well. And knowing him as I do, I think the odds of him stepping down, well, let me put it this way, it'll happen when you see donkeys fly.
Well, sir, as you mentioned, President Biden himself has faced questions, criticism about his fitness for office based on his age, his physical health, his mental health. A lot of folks in the press are pointing out now that by covering what's happened to Senator McConnell over the last few weeks with these two very public freeze-ups, this issue has become bipartisan concern now. Do you agree with folks on both sides of the aisle who are calling for generational change in the Senate?
Well, the press on Capitol Hill has not treated this as a bipartisan issue. They hardly ever talk about President Biden. They would have a lot more credibility if members of the press would go to every Democrat in the Senate and ask them what they think about President Biden's capabilities to serve, and then come talk to us about McConnell. The American people clearly have concerns about President Biden. I mean, he talks like he's from outer space sometimes. And that's a legitimate issue, but it's never covered on Capitol Hill. This week, it's been all McConnell all the time. And I know McConnell. I know him well. And mark my words, when the world ends and hell freezes over, there will be three things left: Chuck Grassley, Mitch McConnell, and cockroaches. Now, you may like that, you may dislike that, but that's the way I see it factually.
Will Senator McConnell remain the Republican leader, sir, if your party retakes the majority in the next election cycle?
Probably, yeah. But, I mean, that's, what, 2 years away, year and a half away. There may or may not be others that run against him. The topic this week has been, should McConnell resign? And McConnell's not going to resign. That's not going to happen in your or my natural lifetime, whether you like it or not. And number two, McConnell says the doctors tell him he's fit to serve, and I believe him.
I want to make sure I ask you about the recent surge in COVID cases, sir, before I let you go. The CDC is reporting that over the last week, hospitalizations resulting from confirmed COVID cases have ticked up 15%. We are seeing some schools now, public elementary schools, institute mask mandates. How concerning are the COVID cases and then the renewed mask mandates to you?
Well, COVID, nobody has said COVID is over. It's no longer a worldwide pandemic. It's more of an endemic disease. But look, I hate to say this, Jillian, but The CDC and the leadership at that time did more to undermine the institution of public health in America than anything I can think of in the last 100 years. I mean, nobody believes what the CDC says anymore, and that's really a shame. When Dr. Fauci said there's no way that the virus could have come out of Wuhan lab, and it was discovered that he had actually funded gain of control research there and tried to cover it up, that just destroyed their credibility. And nobody believes them anymore. And those who do believe them sort of go, well, you know, I guess they're right. They're just not convinced. My feeling about the mask is that if you want to wear a mask, wear it. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear it. But if President Biden tries to mandate mask wearings, I think he needs to call a press conference, throw away the teleprompter, come armed with the science and explain to the American people. But I don't think they'll believe him, because the polls tell me most Americans right now don't trust President Biden to make hamburger helper. And I wish I didn't have to say that, but he's brought this on himself.
And, you know, public trust and confidence, Senator, in all the government's institutions across all three branches of government is pretty much lower now than it's ever been in history. We're hoping, sir, that we will hear from Senator McConnell himself coming up in just a moment. Thanks so much for taking time with us. We appreciate it.
You bet. You bet.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.